As we've mentioned, President Biden's address tonight will include details on the American Families Plan. It's a tax and spending bill focused on health care, child care, and education. Earlier, CBSN Washington reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns spoke with House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. She asked him about what's not in the plan so far.
Doesn't include an expansion of Medicare. It doesn't include an overhaul of prescription drug prices. It doesn't eliminate the cap on state and local deductions. Those have been big sticking points for Democrats, and you're going to need pretty much every single Democrat to get around this bill because it's unlikely that Republicans will support it. So how do you keep the caucus together if it doesn't include those items? And do you want to see those items included?
Caitlin, first let me say, this is the president's proposal. The legislation will be written by the Congress of the United States. The president understands that. We understand that. So his proposal is obviously going to play a very, very significant and important role in the policy that the Congress considers and hopefully adopts. But it will be the Congress that will write the legislation. And those three items that you mentioned have a lot of interest in the Congress. They will be addressed and are being addressed by the committee. So I would be not surprised if a number of issues which are not specifically in the president's proposal right now will nevertheless be in the legislation when we pass it through the House of Representatives. And it's a give and take process. And you're right. We have a close margin. I would hope that we would get help from Republicans who believe that we still need to do things to lift the economy and lift up the Americans who are struggling. But we'll see. So the answer to your question is the president proposes, and the Congress will take his proposal very, very seriously. We will take it very seriously, and we will enact legislation which our committees believe, and the jurisdiction of many, many committees are engaged in these proposals, and we will come out with what we believe is the policy that the Congress is responsible for forging.
So it might those items might make it into the actual legislation. I also want to wanted to ask you about the child tax credit, because this is something that's expanded in the president's proposal but not permanent. A lot of Democrats want to see it made permanent. Is that something that you want to see?
I think it ought to be permanent, yes. But the president clearly he wanted to be cognizant of how much money we were spending. We've spent a lot of money, necessarily, in my opinion, and the result of which has been to keep our economy in pretty good shape. Now, when you have 10 million people who don't have jobs, that's not pretty good shape. That's not where we ought to be. But having said that, it's in much better shape than many of the economies around the world, and much better shape than we could have expected given the assault we've had from COVID-19 over the last 12, 13, 14 months. I think that the president wanted to stay within a certain confine, and so he made the extension, I believe, till 2025. I may be wrong on that number, but I think it's 2025. But I think most members of the Congress on the Democratic side want to see that permanent, because we want to see families be able to rely on that kind of support and with their children for a long period of time.
And you mentioned the slim margin that Democrats have in terms of control of the House. What's your outlook about next year in the midterms? How likely is it that Democrats can keep their hold on the House? Republicans seem pretty optimistic that they can overtake it.
Well, I think that's true. We were pretty optimistic that we were going to pick up 15 seats this last election, and that didn't happen, largely because, in my view, of the overwhelming turnout for Trump. Now, it wasn't the majority of the American people. Joe Biden got that. But the fact is that turnout really helped, I think, the Republicans hold seats that they had and pick up some seats that we had won in Trump districts. Although we held most of the people that we had won in Trump districts, as you probably know. But I think our political outlook is not gloomy. I frankly think we can pick up seats in the 2022 election. I think it's the historic norms of the incumbent president loses. I think Joe Biden is going to continue to be a positive role model and a positive messenger for our country, both here at home and around the world. And I think the American public's going to respond to that. I think, frankly, the Republican Party has the narrowest base of any party in the time I've been involved in politics. I think it's a base that does not want to cooperate, does not want to see compromise, but a very hard-line base. And I don't think that's going to serve the Republicans well in the next election. And I frankly think we're going to pick up seats around the country. Very frankly, the census report and the report about which states get which numbers, frankly, was not nearly as hard as I thought it was going to be on us. So I think we have a good shot at both expanding our membership in the United States Senate and in the House of Representatives.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to the speech tonight.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good being with you.